It had been 3 months since the divorce papers were finalized. 3 months since the woman I thought I would grow old with packed half the house into cardboard boxes and walked out without looking back. People say time heals everything, but nobody tells you how painfully slow time moves when you're alone. Every night felt heavier than the last. The silence inside my house wasn't peaceful silence. It was the kind that pressed against your chest. No laughter from the kitchen. No random conversations about meaningless things. No one asking if I wanted coffee. No one waiting for me at the end of the day. So I started avoiding home. I stayed late at the office almost every night, pretending I was focused on work. Truthfully, I just didn't want to sit in an empty living room with my thoughts staring back at me. At work, I acted normal. I smiled in meetings, I answered emails. I even joked around sometimes, but inside, I felt completely hollow. My name is Daniel. I'm 36 years old. And after my marriage ended, I honestly believed my life was over. If you're watching this right now and you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or emotionally exhausted, subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this remind us that sometimes life falls apart quietly before it comes back together in ways we never expected. That Thursday night started like every other lonely Thursday. Rain tapped softly against my windows while I sat on my couch wearing old sweatpants, eating cold pizza straight from the box because I didn't even have the energy to heat it up. The television was on, but I wasn't really watching it. My mind kept drifting to old memories, old arguments, old regrets. Then suddenly my phone buzzed on the table beside me. I glanced at the screen. Emily Carter, my boss. I frowned immediately. Emily never called me this late, especially not after 9 p.m. For a second, I considered letting it ring. Something about it felt strange. But then I answered. Hello? There was a short pause on the other side before she finally spoke. Daniel, are you home? Her voice sounded different, not confident, not calm, nervous. I sat up straighter instantly. Yeah, I said. Is everything okay? Another pause. Then quietly. Can I come by? I blinked. My house? Yes. She sounded hesitant now, almost unsure of herself. Please, I looked around my messy living room like it had personally betrayed me. Pizza box on the couch, blanket on the floor, coffee mugs everywhere. Sure. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Then the call ended. I just sat there staring at my phone. Emily Carter coming to my house at night made absolutely no sense. She had been my boss for nearly 4 years. At work, she was known for being sharp, composed, intimidatingly professional. The kind of woman who walked into meetings and immediately controlled the room without raising her voice. Everyone respected her. Most people were slightly afraid of her too. But over the years, I had seen little glimpses of another version of Emily. A quieter version. The woman who noticed when I skipped lunch and casually left snacks on my desk without mentioning it. The woman who stayed late, helping junior employees, even when she didn't have to. The woman who asked me one morning after my divorce, "Did you sleep at all last night?" in a voice so sincere it almost broke me. Still, coming to my house at night, alone, that was different. Very different. I stood up quickly and started cleaning like my life depended on it. I shoved the pizza box into the trash, folded blankets, wiped counters. Then I changed my shirt. Then changed it again because the first one looked too desperate. 10 minutes later, headlights appeared outside my window. My heart immediately started pounding harder. I pulled the curtains slightly aside. It was her. Emily stepped out of her car holding a black umbrella against the rain. Even standing in the storm, she looked elegant without trying. Simple gray coat, loose hair resting over her shoulders, no makeup. And somehow that made her look even more beautiful. Not perfect, real. I opened the door before she could knock. "Hey," I said awkwardly. "Hey." She smiled faintly, but something felt off immediately. For the first time since I had known her, Emily looked tired, not physically tired, emotionally tired. Like someone who had been carrying too much weight for too long. I stepped aside. "Come in." "Thanks." She walked inside slowly and removed her coat carefully. "You can leave it there." "Thank you." The room became quiet almost instantly. Too quiet. The kind of silence where both people are thinking too much. "I'm sorry for showing up this late," she said softly. "It's okay." I pointed toward the couch. "Do you want coffee?" She shook her head. "No, I just—" Then she stopped speaking. That worried me immediately. Emily never struggled for words. I noticed her hands trembling slightly. "Emily," I said carefully. "What happened?" She looked down for a second, then laughed quietly. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "At work, everyone thinks I have my life together." I didn't answer, because honestly, I understood that feeling more than anyone. People only see the version of you that survives in public. They never see the version sitting alone at 2 a.m. wondering where everything went wrong. Emily slowly looked around my house. It's peaceful here, I laughed softly. That's one word for it. She smiled faintly. Then her expression changed. You've been lonely, haven't you? The question hit harder than I expected, because nobody had asked me that directly in months. People asked surface-level questions. How are you holding up? You doing okay? You'll move on eventually. But nobody asked the real question. Nobody wanted the honest answer. I shrugged slightly. I'm getting used to it. Emily tilted her head. That's not an answer. I looked away. After the divorce, people stopped wanting honesty from me. They wanted quick recovery. They wanted me to become normal again, so they could feel comfortable around me again. But loneliness doesn't disappear because someone tells you to stay strong. Sometimes it sits beside you quietly for months. Emily studied my face carefully. You loved her a lot, yeah, and she hurt you. I let out a slow breath. Yeah. Rain crashed harder against the windows. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then quietly, almost like she regretted saying it. My husband left 2 years ago. I looked up immediately. What? She nodded slowly. I never told anyone at work. I stared at her in disbelief. You were married? Technically still am, she said with a bitter smile. The divorce papers were never finalized. Suddenly, so many things made sense. The late nights at work, the empty expression in her eyes sometimes, the way she avoided personal conversations. All this time she had been carrying pain too. She laughed softly again. Funny, right? Not really. I spent 2 years pretending I was fine. Then her eyes met mine. But tonight, I couldn't sit alone anymore. Something shifted inside the room after that. Everything suddenly felt more honest, more vulnerable, more dangerous too. I sat across from her quietly. You could have called a friend. I did. What happened? No one answered. That sentence hurt in a strangely familiar way, because sometimes the hardest part of loneliness isn't being alone. It's realizing nobody notices you are. Then she looked directly at me. But I knew you would answer. My chest tightened instantly. Outside, thunder rolled softly through the distance. Inside, the atmosphere changed completely. Emily leaned back slowly against the couch. You know something strange, Daniel? What? You're the only person who talks to me like I'm normal. I laughed quietly. You scare me too much to act fake. That made her smile for real this time. A genuine smile. Warm, beautiful. And for the first time in months, I forgot about my divorce. Just for a second. Then Emily noticed the framed wedding photo sitting on my shelf. My stomach tightened immediately. She stood up slowly and picked it up. You still keep this? I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. I forgot to move it. That was a lie. I hadn't forgotten. I just couldn't let go yet. Emily studied the picture quietly for a moment. Then she surprised me. She didn't deserve this version of you. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? Emily placed the photo back carefully. The version that still knows how to love deeply after being hurt. Those words stayed in my head immediately. Nobody had ever described me that way before. Most people acted like being emotional after divorce made you weak. But Emily said it like it was something rare, something valuable. Then suddenly, the lights went out. The entire house fell dark. I laughed softly. Perfect timing. The storm? Yeah, happens sometimes. Only rain and distant thunder filled the silence now. Then Emily whispered something unexpected. Good. I frowned slightly. Good? In the darkness, her voice sounded softer than ever before. Now I can finally tell you why I really came here tonight. My heartbeat immediately sped up. The room stayed dark except for faint streetlights slipping through the windows. I could barely see her silhouette near the shelf. What do you mean? I asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked closer toward the window. For the first time since I had known her, Emily looked nervous. Not like my boss, not like the confident executive everyone admired, just human. I almost didn't come tonight, she admitted softly. Then why did you? She folded her arms slowly. Because I was afraid. Of what? Her eyes met mine. Of losing the chance to tell you the truth. The air suddenly felt heavier. What truth? She smiled sadly. Do you remember the Henderson project last winter? I thought for a second. The night everyone left early? She nodded. You stayed late alone. I laughed softly. I remember. You looked exhausted. I was exhausted. She stared at me carefully. You also looked heartbroken. That part was true too. Earlier that same day, I had signed the divorce papers officially. I remembered sitting alone at my desk after everyone left, staring blankly at my computer screen because I couldn't process the fact that my marriage was actually over. Emily had quietly walked over and placed coffee beside me, without saying much. At the time, I thought she was simply being kind. Now I wasn't so sure anymore. That night, she continued softly, I realized something. I stayed silent. She took a deep breath. I cared about you more than I should. Every muscle in my body tightened instantly. Rain hammered against the windows harder now. For 1 second I honestly thought I imagined her words. But her eyes never left mine. "You don't have to say anything," she added quickly. "I know the timing is complicated." I finally found my voice. "Emily." She shook her head gently. "I'm not here to pressure you. I just got tired of pretending. Pretending." That word hit me deeply because that was exactly what I had been doing too. Pretending I was okay. Pretending I didn't feel empty. Pretending I didn't look forward to seeing her every morning at work. Pretending I hadn't noticed how different she treated me from everyone else. I walked toward her slowly. "Why didn't you tell me before?" She laughed quietly. "You already had enough pain." That answer affected me more than her confession itself. Even now, she was protecting my feelings before her own. Then suddenly, the lights flickered back on. Both of us blinked, and there we were. Standing only a few feet apart, no darkness left to hide inside anymore. Emily suddenly looked embarrassed. "I should probably go." "What? This was a mistake." "No," the word came out too fast. She looked surprised. I rubbed my neck awkwardly. "I don't think it was." Neither of us moved. Then her phone buzzed loudly. The sound broke the tension immediately. She glanced at the screen, and her expression changed. I noticed it instantly. "What happened?" She locked the screen quickly. "Nothing. That didn't look like nothing." She hesitated, then sighed quietly. "My husband." The word felt strange in the room. "He still calls sometimes." I swallowed slowly. "What does he want?" "He wants another chance." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Of course he did. A woman like Emily was impossible to forget. She noticed my reaction immediately. "Daniel." I forced a small smile. "You should answer him." "I don't want to. But maybe you should." She stared at me carefully. "Are you pushing me away already?" I didn't know how to answer that. Because the truth was, I was scared. Scared of trusting someone again. Scared of opening my heart again. Scared of losing someone all over again. After divorce, love doesn't feel exciting anymore. It feels dangerous. Emily stepped closer. "You know what your problem is?" I laughed weakly. "Only one? You think love has to destroy you to be real." Her words caught me completely off guard. She continued softly. "You gave everything to someone who walked away. But that doesn't mean everyone will." For some reason my eyes burned slightly. I looked down quickly. After my marriage ended, I promised myself I would never become vulnerable again. Never depend on anyone emotionally again. Never allow another person to have that kind of power over me again. And yet here I was, standing in my living room feeling more understood than I had in years. Emily slowly reached for her coat. "I should leave before this gets more complicated." But before she could step away, I gently held her wrist. Not forcefully, just enough to stop her. She looked at me quietly. "Stay a little longer," I said. The room fell silent again. Then slowly, she smiled. A real smile this time. Warm, soft, honest. So she stayed, and honestly, that night changed everything. We talked for hours, not small talk. Real talk. The kind of conversations people only have when their walls finally collapse. We talked about failed marriages, about regret, about loneliness, about the strange ways heartbreak changes you. Emily admitted she stopped celebrating birthdays after her husband left because it made her feel stupid celebrating alone. I admitted there were nights I sat in my car outside my own house because I couldn't handle walking into silence yet. She told me she hated eating dinner alone at restaurants because she could feel people pitying her. I told her I deleted social media because watching happy couples made me angry. At one point she laughed and said, "We sound emotionally unstable." I laughed too, probably because we are. And for the first time in months, I genuinely laughed. Not fake polite laughter. Real laughter. The kind that makes your chest feel lighter afterward. Sometime around midnight, the storm outside finally calmed down. And strangely, so did the storm inside me. Emily curled her legs slightly beneath her while sitting on the couch. "You know what's weird?" she asked quietly. "What?" "I feel safer here than I have in years." That sentence affected me deeply. Not because it sounded romantic, but because it sounded honest. And honest feelings are rare now, especially in adults. Adults hide everything: pain, fear, loneliness, love. We spend years pretending we're fine because the world rewards people who look emotionally controlled. But underneath, most people are exhausted. Most people are silently hoping someone finally sees them for real. Around 2 a.m., Emily glanced at the clock and laughed. "We have work in 6 hours. I might call in sick." Her eyes widened playfully. "You never call in sick. I'm trying new things." That made her smile again. Then suddenly her expression softened. "You know something else strange?" "What?" This is the first place that has felt like home in a very long time. That sentence stayed with me permanently. Because home isn't always a building. Sometimes home is maybe the first person who makes your nervous system finally relax. Eventually, she stood near the door to leave, but neither of us wanted the night to end. Emily looked up at me quietly. "So, what happens now?" I thought carefully for a moment, then smiled softly. "For now, yeah." We stopped pretending. Her eyes filled slightly with emotion. Then she stepped forward and hugged me gently. Not dramatic, not rushed, not cinematic, just real. And after months of feeling emotionally broken, I finally felt peace again. But the story didn't end there. Because 1 week later, I learned something that completely changed the way I saw her. Emily had been offered a major promotion in another city 2 months earlier. A huge opportunity, the kind of position people spend years fighting for. Everyone expected her to take it, but she turned it down, quietly, without telling anyone. At first, I assumed it was because of her unfinished divorce situation. But later, during dinner one night, she finally admitted the truth. I didn't want to leave. Why? She looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Because of you." I stared at her speechless. She laughed softly. I think part of me knew long before that night. That moment changed something inside me permanently. Because after my divorce, I started believing love was selfish, temporary, fragile. But Emily showed me another version of love entirely. The quiet kind, the patient kind, the kind that stays. And maybe that's the biggest lesson I learned through all of it. Sometimes love doesn't arrive dramatically. It doesn't always explode into your life with perfect timing and movie music. Sometimes it simply knocks on your door during a thunderstorm when your life feels completely broken. Sometimes it looks like two lonely people finally telling each other the truth. Sometimes it starts with one person saying, "I knew you would answer." And maybe that's enough. Maybe healing doesn't happen all at once. Maybe it begins the moment somebody finally makes you feel less alone. So if you're going through heartbreak right now, if your house feels too quiet, if you're pretending you're okay while secretly falling apart inside, listen carefully. Your story might not be over yet. Because the strange thing about life is that the moments we think are endings sometimes become the exact moments something beautiful quietly begins. And sometimes, love arrives on a rainy night right when you least expect it. 2 months after that rainy night, life slowly started feeling normal again. Not perfect, just lighter. Emily and I kept things quiet at work. Professional during meetings, careful around coworkers, but outside the office everything felt natural, easy. For the first time in years, I stopped waking up with that heavy feeling in my chest. Then one evening she came over again. No storm this time, no sadness either. She walked into my kitchen carrying takeout and smiled like she belonged there already. While we were eating, she suddenly looked serious. "My husband signed the papers today," she said softly. I put my fork down. "How do you feel?" She thought for a second before answering. "Free." There was no anger in her voice anymore. No pain, just peace. Then she looked at me carefully. "You know, that night I came to your house, I thought I was completely broken." I smiled faintly. "Me too." She reached across the table and held my hand gently. But maybe we just needed someone who understood. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to, because sometimes love isn't about dramatic moments. Sometimes it's simply two damaged people helping each other breathe again. A year later, we moved into a new apartment together, smaller than my old house, warmer too. And one rainy Thursday night, while listening to thunder outside the window, Emily leaned against my shoulder and whispered something that made me smile. "I'm really glad you answered the phone that night." I looked at her and quietly replied, "So am I."